now our good friend, okay, from Germany, okay, leaving Belgium, Poland, and then we have Germany. The topic is going to be testing is important, but requirement engineering is key. So let's help me in welcoming Mr. Stan Berne, okay, from Germany. And he's a managing director of IREB. So Stan, here you go.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And as you have already read on my title, so you might think this is quite provocative because we are here for testers, and for sure, I mean, testing is really a discipline, and you have skills that are so important for ensuring quality. But there is something where software engineering or software development starts, and it does not start in software testing. I think you often face the issue that you will get something on your desk, some product that is completely on a less or on a quality level that is really not intended where it should be. And this is a problem of us doing requirements engineering, when requirements engineering is not performed well and when the requirements are not good enough for establishing a good software, for creating a good product, what is then delivered for testing, that you as quality assurance people could also have a look on this and find the defects that are really critical, but not identifying topics that have not at all been discovered during the requirements engineering process. That's the idea of today's talk. So let me shortly give a few details of myself. I'm working for the International Requirements Engineering Board. I'm the managing director for the GmbH. I have some experience in requirements engineering. I've been working in the area of requirements engineering since about 1999, so this is a few years from now. And this was the first contact I had with requirements engineering in my university. And when I started to work as an IT consultant, I started in the area of project management. And here I clearly have seen that what is missing mostly is the vision of the product. And when the vision is missing, also the requirements are somehow missing and they are misleading. And this is really a pain many companies are facing today. And not only today, even since years, but there's still a learning curve that needs to be considered. So who is IREB? IREB is also an organization that is founded in 2006. So it's nearly the same age as ISTQB. And IREB was founded with the intention to have also high quality products at the end, but looking at the beginning, starting from requirements engineering. And here the idea was really to have some more professionalization in the area of requirements engineering and helping people to get the right requirements out of their stakeholders, to have a kind of documentation that is feasible, that you can validate requirements also quite early, that you can talk to your developers and that they understand the requirements, and these requirements then later on for sure are used in testing to see if the product that should have been developed was developed in the end. And IREB is also a non-profit organization and was initially set up for a set of products. Our core product is the CPRE, the Certified Professional for Requirements Engineering. And this is a certification scheme. I will come to this to the end again, bringing you also a kind of common language, common understanding on the area of requirements engineering. So we have also different levels, starting from foundation level, advanced levels, expert levels, and so on. An additional topic that we are covering today, because we have seen requirements engineering is an important field, but looking today in digitalization, digital transformation areas, you often face the problem that people just I'm stepping back and say, hi, I am only in the role of a requirements engineer, I'm only in the role of an architect, I'm only in the role of a tester. And this is most often not really feasible for a good product. You need someone who is taking responsibility for the entire product from the very vision until the product is going productive and in an agile setting with a continuous development behind. That's the idea behind the digital design professional, but that's not the part I'm here for today. I'm talking about requirements engineering. Another product that we have is the Requirements Engineering Magazine, also since I think more or less 9 years. And recently we have published the 100th article, and we always have articles for sure related to RE, but also to testing, architecture, and so on, cross-cutting fields that are somehow related. Completely free, just have a look on it. I have some tablets at my booth. You can also scroll through it for the certification or also for the RE magazine to just give you some impression on it. Coming back to topic. So, in my perception, this is maybe my personal perception, if you don't do requirements engineering, you can also save the effort for testing, because what will happen if you don't do requirements engineering, you just start development? You will get something as a tester where you have some kind of a black box or present. For instance, I'm buying a present for my boss and just ask someone else, is it the right present for my boss? He doesn't know my boss, he doesn't know the purpose, he doesn't know what he is, let's say, intended to do with it, so he cannot really judge on it. And that's the point where I would say, yes, here we first need to think about what is required, what is needed, and that's what requirements engineering is about. Looking at some definitions, and here we also clearly see that testing is about requirements. So this definition is just used from the ISTQB glossary. And looking in there, you see that it's a kind of evaluation of a component or system to determine if the system is really satisfying such specified requirements. And here again, for sure, you are looking against something that is about requirements. Looking to requirements engineering, what is requirements engineering about, you might ask. Requirements engineering is merely the topic of getting the most input out of your stakeholders, to understand their visions, to understand their desires and their needs, to document them in a clearly way, and just to have something that could be then created, a good architecture could be developed, and then you have a basis for testing. And after all, it's quite important to say RE and testing is two disciplines that both striving for quality at the end. And that's why they are going hand in hand. And we all see in the, just in the background, because maybe it's a bit old-fashioned, the old V model. Some of you might know that. And also here you see, you have on the one hand side something that needs to be defined, and on the other hand side something that needs to be verified and tested. But even in an agile world, when we are coming to something that is coming cross-cutting teams, coming in teams where you develop frequently your software, although there the skills, both RE and testing, are still needed. So that's why quality, to have high quality products, that's why we have quality needs to be defined as a first step. So you first need to think about what is really required in terms of functionality, in terms of quality, in, let's say, security, whatever aspects as well. And then this needs to be defined as a first step. And here I want to give you some principles, some general principles from requirements engineering, just to give you some insight what is RE about. And here you might also see that the principles we are talking about are also somehow in relation with testing, in my point of view. So when talking about principles, we talk about, on the one hand side, of value orientation, stakeholders, shared understanding, context, problems, requirements, and solutions, because you also need to consider technology behind, validation, changes that might come up innovation and at the end about a kind of systematic and disciplined work. You all know this from testing is also a systematic work you're doing there. Going a bit into the details. Principle 1, this is about value orientation. What does it mean from the RE perspective? So when talking about value orientation, a requirement itself has no value. So the value of a requirement is clearly to see what should be done in this piece of software and how this could be tested afterwards. And when thinking about what should requirements engineering do at the end, that is reducing the risk that the product will fail, similar as testing, but here already directly in the very beginning, to think about, did I consider all stakeholders that are important? Did I consider all requirements that are important? I mean, what happens if I just forgot to ask one of the main stakeholders who should use this piece of software, maybe the operations department who's deploying, maintaining this and everything. So if I just forgot to ask them about their requirements, the need for maintaining the software, for operating the software, this could be a real issue. This might end into the fact that the software will not go live and the whole project is completely damaged. For sure, now you may say forgetting operational stuff is somehow stupid enough, but there are enough stakeholders that could be forgotten. Another principle is about satisfying stakeholders, as already seen in the definition. So in general, we talk about stakeholders because stakeholders, this means clients, customers, users, people that are directly, indirectly affected by the system that is implemented. These are all people or human beings that have some stake into this piece of software. And all what we want to do as a requirements engineer, but also as a tester in the very end, is to make this stakeholders somehow happy and just to have some satisfaction for them. That this piece of software is really working, really solving their problem, and that is that this piece of software is meeting their expectations that they really have. Principle 3 is about that shared understanding is really essential in software engineering, because you all have faced for sure this topic when you're having a meeting with a couple of people sitting at a table discussing about something, and you all agree, you leave the room, and someone is writing maybe some short notes or some just starting development, whatever, and then just after a week you come back and see, this is not what I have intended that it should be. And this is somehow important to create this shared understanding. This means shared understanding could be created, for instance, not only by talking, because everybody has something else in his head. So he has some own expectations, some own background, and so on. That's why it is important to create some kind of documentation. This must not be a documentation out of hundreds of pages, but this could be a simple model. This could be just a simple sentence or paragraph that's written down. Just nail it down and see what is that, what we are talking about. And if you are having, let's say, if you're working in industry, working with different terms, and everyone is using this term somehow slightly different, just create a glossary, like this glossary from ISTQB, from IREP. So this is something that you could do easily also in your company, that you know that the people who's calling a term, that everybody has the same understanding about that. Principle 4 is about context, because I think Olivier already mentioned this. Buying a bottle of Coke, the price depends on the context, but also the solution depends on context. And if we are looking on the system, that's the blue bubble inside, that is something that should be developed. Then this system is living in a context because it's, let's say, first onion part, system context. System context, you find all the users, because you develop a system for someone or something. This means most often you have some kind of users for your systems. These are stakeholders at the end, being honest. Then you have certain systems, because you need some data, you create some data that should be published somewhere else. You need probably some kind of network connection. The internet connection should be good enough, otherwise you have to rethink your system, that you maybe has also some offline data available, and so on. These are all at the end requirements coming from the outside, from the system context, and this needs to be considered. And especially the system boundary, this is an important thing, because here you define what is in your scope of the development for now. And here you clearly can define what are the interfaces, what are the interfaces to the users, and what are the interfaces to other systems. And this is also a kind of requirements engineering work, at least the establishing and knowing what kind of interfaces are there, what kind of data needs to be exchanged, and in which frequency, and so on. This has nothing to do with architecture, this is all RE work. And for sure, we also have this below the system context, the world around. It's a context boundary, and this is something that needs to be set up and needs to be clear for each and everyone, also in this endeavor for development. Because here you set your shape and you say, this is all I need to consider, and here you also have to have some clear boundaries, and this should be stated. You should talk about this. This should not be just an assumption in your head, in someone's head. This should be clearly stated, documented, and it should be clear to everyone. When talking about requirements, most people only have in their mind that you talk about the problems and the requirements, needs, desires, whatever. But looking into our world today, this will not happen, because we are not on a green field. And you always need to consider existing solutions and existing technologies as well. Because just imagine you're creating some new product, and this new product should not have a normal UI as a user interface displaying the steps through the process, but this should have a voice interface. And if you just rethink, you cannot define the requirements, or let's say at least on a detailed level, in the same way for a user interface and a voice interface. Because if you're doing something in a voice interface, you have to ask some different questions, and you need to reconsider the process in a different way. And this has nothing to do with architectural decisions or something like this when talking about requirements and technology. And this is only just to let you know, depending on where is your domain, what is the context that is set, you also should know which technology should be used, because then you should ask the right questions with your stakeholders, with your customers, with the one using this product, to just get the right flow. Another important principle is about validation. I mean, validation or verification, you probably know better than me for software testing. But validation or verification should not only start in the end. Also, when writing down requirements, it's really important to already think about, did I document the right things? Is this really meeting the requirements or the needs the people have? And here you can use some kind of validation techniques. I mean, easily used some kind of reviewing documents, like we're doing for our syllabi, for instance. It's also kind of validation if the content is right, like ISTQB is doing for the syllabi. And don't be afraid for a vast amount of commands, as Olivier told us for the syllabus for the foundation level ISTQB. There were about 3,000 or 5,000 commands. And this will happen, and hopefully this happens as well for your requirements documents, or when you're validating requirements, because then you are sure people are reading this piece. of paper or this electronic documents. They are thinking about your requirements. They are thinking about, is this the real thing that I need? Is this documented correctly? And that's the best feedback you can reach is getting a lot of comments, because then you know people are working with these documents. Another way of validation for sure is like walkthroughs. You can easily do also on a requirements basis some kind of walkthroughs using models, for instance, having a sequence diagram or an activity diagram. Just put the people that are really impacted by the solution into one room. Just put a slide or a model at the desk. Just go through with them one by one activity by the other activity. Or if you have a sequence diagram, just go around the sequence, just to let the people feel if this is the right way to go. Principle number 7 is about change is no accident. When I've written my first requirements documentation, it's a few years ago, being honest, but I was ready, was nailed down, everybody agreed on it, was signed, just ordered our vendor that he can start implementation. And just as soon as this was done, phone was ringing, marketing department was on, hey, we need to change something because there are some regulation changes. What the hell, I thought. I just finished this piece of work, and now everything changes. And I learned that this is reality. This has nothing to do with your expertise or your way of working in this field of software engineering. This just happens because the world is continuously changing, and there's dropping something. So you have new competitors coming up, you have regulations coming up. Marketing just changes their mind because they see, oh, the product is maybe not that well designed, and there needs to be some reshape and so on. And that's why just welcome changes. The only thing you need to consider is how to manage these changes. And this already also happens in RE, because this is mostly the first interface from a product owner or from marketing, where these new ideas pop up. And if you have a clear structure in your requirements, that they are somehow traceable. And traceable must not mean each and every tiny requirement is traceable. Also, you can also manage traceability in a kind of in user stories in an agile way. But here it's quite important that you see what needs to be changed, what is the impact, and so on. This means you have to have some processes and some ideas how to deal with this kind of changes. Otherwise, these changes will kill you immediately. Principle 8 is about encouraging innovation. Quite often, I've heard the sentence, a requirements engineer, what is he doing? He's just writing things down as a secretary or whatever. No, it's not. Definitely not. Because as a requirements engineer, for sure, you need to listen to people. And this is a discipline that needs to be learned. But you also need to ask the right questions. You need to trigger your people to get the right questions out there. And you need to use your experience you have gained in other projects to create some innovation, to talk about topics that are maybe possible with technology, to talk about other, let's say, processes that you have known. And that's why, as a requirements engineer, you also are facing a kind of innovation, because if you're doing your job well, you really directly shape the part of software that is designed at the end. And you have quite huge influence. Maybe people that didn't know this. But if you take the responsibility and you are going for and this is your, let's say, hard blood, then you also could talk with the people, give your opinion, shapes the idea. For sure, you should not just put your idea on desk. I mean, that's pretty clear. You need to have a right balance. You need to talk to your stakeholders. You need to understand their real needs and desires. Principle 8 is about disciplined work. Yeah, that's what I mentioned. Requirements engineering, there is a quite strict way of discipline. But at the end, there is not that one requirements engineering process. There is not a process where you say, go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're done. Requirements engineering is an iterative learning process. Anytime you're talking to people, you will gain additional understanding, you will create a proper knowledge to the system that needs to be developed. And this also changes things you might have assumed in the very beginning. And this is fine. And but requirements engineering is also some kind of collaborative, and it's work that needs to be really shaped. And shaped means, as mentioned, there is not this one RE process. Requirements engineering, and especially these principles, in my point of view, could be used. Doesn't matter if you're working in a traditional waterfall, V model, whatever, or if you're working in agile mode. Because all these ideas of eliciting, documenting, and managing requirements, these are needed each and everywhere, doesn't matter of the process. And requirements engineering is just to make your software somehow effective at the end. As mentioned, it doesn't matter if you're doing it in a plan-based way or if you're doing it in an agile way. If you do not do requirements engineering, you don't have requirements, and if you don't have your proper requirements, at the end you don't want to have a successful product. What are we doing to handle this problem, to tackle this problem? As mentioned in the very beginning, IREP is an organization similar as ISTQB, creating syllabi, setting up examinations, and will come to the idea of providing knowledge to people. So we have a certification scheme, CPRE, we have the Agile Primer. This is intended for especially people working in an agile context, and they say, I don't have that much time to get that much details in learning RE, but I need to have a quick solution, and this is intended for them especially. Then we have the foundation level, similar as for testing. This gives you the broad basis for requirements engineering, speaking the same language, having an idea what is requirements engineering about, talking about techniques, processes, and so on. Then, in the advanced level, we have 2 steps. We have practitioners and specialists. The difference here is practitioners will gain the knowledge by the syllabus, having a multiple choice examination, and the specialist is the one who has already this knowledge in this area, for instance, requirements elicitation. He has applied this knowledge in his daily work, and then he can reflect on these principles and techniques that he is using. And this reflection is done in a written assignment, so this then we call a specialist. It means people are doing this written assignment, provided to us, this is reviewed, and then people are going for a specialist. In the advanced level, we cover these parts going into depth for elicitation. This means getting all the right things out of your customers or your clients. Requirements management, all about dealing with requirements prioritization, reporting, setting up a right information structure, and so on. And requirements modeling, especially in safety critical systems, using UML models, class diagrams, sequence diagrams, activity diagrams. Here is really used that you attach some additional, more formalized models to your textual requirements. And not to forget, RE at Agile. This is our advanced level for Agile settings. If you have done the foundation level, then you could also go for the RE at Agile, giving you an idea of how to structure your requirements in Agile setting. Just some numbers. We are not that huge than ISTQB. I wonder why, because it all starts with requirements, but we are only 10% of it. There's enough potential, I guess. But we are also in 92 countries having our foundation level available in 12 languages. So this means also customization for local boards and everything. What's your takeaway for today? Doesn't matter, Agile, testing, RE, they all strive for quality in the product at the end. When looking at requirements engineering, this will ensure that the product at the end is effective, that this is somehow doable at the end. Looking at testing, you will guarantee that this product is fit for purpose, that this can be used, this has the right quality at the end, and that the users can use this piece of software. Agile, in my perspective, is something else. Agile also strives for quality, but this is more on the process way. Agile makes processes maybe more effective because you have time boxing, you have this learning curve due to these sprints that you're doing. Since you have continuously learning, you're getting fast feedback from the outside, and this is something you can make software development more effective. And at the end, all the three go pretty well hand in hand, if done right. So, thank you. I'm outside as well for the next 2 days at the booth. If you have any questions just now or in the next 2 days. Thanks a lot.